Something was wrong before anyone touched anyone. That's the part most people miss. They wait for the moment, the raised voice, the slammed fist, the thing that looks like what it is. But by the time it looks like what it is, it's already been going on for a long time. You just weren't watching closely enough. Dora Reyes was watching. She'd been sitting at the corner table of the Magnolia House Grill in Carterville, Tennessee for about 20 minutes when the Hargrove family walked in. She wasn't there looking for trouble. She was waiting on her road captain Marcus, who was already running late because Marcus was always running late. She had a glass of sweet tea, a laminated menu she hadn't opened, and the kind of stillness that makes people instinctively lower their voices when they sit near her. The Hargroves got seated 2 tables over. Father, mother, teenage girl. The father, tall, clean-cut, the kind of man who irons his casual shirts, held the door and gestured everyone in like he was doing them a favor. He smiled at the hostess. She smiled back. He had that kind of face. Practiced, warm on the surface with nothing underneath it that moved on its own. Dora noticed he sat down before his wife did. Small thing. You'd never think to look for it. But Dora had been reading people her whole life, the way some folks read weather. You look for the small things, because the small things tell you what the big things are going to be. The girl sat across from the father. Dora put her at about 15, maybe just turned 16. She had dark hair pulled back, a hoodie that was a little too big, and the kind of posture you develop when you've spent years trying to take up less room. She opened her menu without looking at anyone, not sulking, not on her phone, just retreating, folding inward. The mother ordered water. The father ordered for her without asking what she wanted. The mother didn't react. She had the practiced stillness of someone who'd learned that reacting had a cost. The girl, Dora didn't know her name yet, ordered a grilled cheese, plain. The father looked at her and said something Dora couldn't quite catch, but the girl's chin dipped just slightly. She changed her order, something smaller. That's when Dora set down her glass. She wasn't going to leave. She wasn't going to look away. She was going to sit right there and watch every single thing that happened at that table, and she was going to do it the way she did everything, with complete patience and zero performance. For a while it was almost ordinary. The food came. The father talked, a lot, actually, about his week, about a project at work, about something a neighbor had done that had apparently offended him deeply. The mother listened and nodded. The girl ate her food slowly and said almost nothing. But every few minutes the father would redirect his attention to her, like a spotlight swinging back, and every time it did, the girl's shoulders would shift, barely perceptible. But there, Dora had a name for that pattern. Most people didn't. They'd look at that table and think, quiet family dinner. A little tense maybe, but families get tense. Nothing unusual here. But Dora had grown up inside that pattern. She knew the mechanics of it like she knew the mechanics of her engine. Every part, every sound, exactly what broke first under pressure. The father was performing for the room. The warmth, the easy laugh, the big tip he'd already mentally calculated to leave so the waitress would remember him fondly. All of it was outward, directed out. And when he turned inward, toward his family, toward that girl especially, something in his face went different. Not meaner, exactly. More focused. More certain of itself. That kind of certainty was the most dangerous thing Dora had ever learned to recognize. About 30 minutes in, something shifted. The girl said something. Dora caught a few words. Something about a friend, a Friday night. Permission she was maybe asking for or had already been denied. The father's response was measured, calm, too calm. The kind of calm that isn't peace, but is instead the threat of what happens if you push any further. And then he said, loud enough now that Dora could hear it clearly, "We've talked about this. You don't get to reopen conversations in public, Nadia." Nadia. Now Dora had a name. Nadia looked down at her plate. She didn't argue. She'd done the math already. This wasn't the place, and she knew it. But there was something in the line of her jaw that said she wasn't done. That whatever was happening between them had a history, and she hadn't given up on the ending yet. That small thing, that refusal to fully disappear, was the first thing about Nadia that made Dora's chest tighten. Because that kind of quiet resistance is either the thing that saves you, or the thing that gets you hurt worse, depending entirely on who is sitting across from you. The father asked for the check early. Something had soured. You could feel it moving across that table like a cold front, invisible, but changing the pressure of everything. The mother started gathering her things with the efficiency of someone who knew they needed to be ready to leave fast. Nadia sat very still, and then the father leaned forward and said something directly to Nadia, low enough that no one else could hear. Whatever it was, it landed. Nadia's face did something complicated. It didn't crumble, but something behind her eyes went very quiet, in the way that means the opposite of peace. She said one word back to him. Dora couldn't read the word, but she could read the courage it took to say it. He reached across the table and grabbed her forearm. Not a slap, not a shove, a grip. Fingers wrapping around her forearm and pulling her arm forward across the table, smooth and controlled like it was the most natural thing in the world. He kept his voice low and his face almost neutral, a man having a quiet moment of correction with his daughter. That's what it looked like if you weren't paying attention. But Dora had been paying attention for 45 minutes. She was already moving. She didn't rush. She never rushes. Rushing tells the other person they have power over your timing, and she wasn't giving this man anything. She stood, picked up her sweet tea like she might take it with her, set it back down, and walked across the restaurant at a pace that said, "I have been meaning to come over here. I have all the time in the world." She stopped at the edge of their table. The father looked up, and something happened in his face, just a flicker, just a fraction of a second, because Dora Reyes is not a small woman, and she doesn't carry herself like a woman who is ever surprised to be exactly where she is. "Hey," she said, just that. He stared at her. "Can I help you?" "You can let go of her arm," Dora said. "That would help." He didn't let go immediately. Men like him never do. It would mean the first move was someone else's, and they can't tolerate that. He looked around the room instead, recalibrating, trying to decide what kind of scene this was and what role he was supposed to play in it. "This is a family matter," he said. Still calm, still pleasant almost. "I'd appreciate it if you'd—" "I know what it is," Dora said. "Let go of her arm." He let go. He did it slowly, like he was choosing to. But he let go. Nadia pulled her arm back. She didn't look at Dora right away. She looked at the table, then at her hands, and Dora could see her deciding something. Deciding how much to let herself feel, how much to let herself hope, because hope in that situation is dangerous, and she knew it. The father straightened up. The performance came back fast. It always does with men like him. "I don't know who you think you are, coming to a family dinner and—" "My name is Dora Reyes," she said. "I've been sitting at that table since before you walked in. I've watched your family for almost an hour." She said it without apology, like it was simply true. "I've watched your daughter check the door 3 times. I've watched her change her food order. I've watched her measure every word before she says it." She tilted her head. "You want to tell me what I'm misunderstanding?" The man's jaw moved. A muscle in his neck tightened. "She's a teenager," he said. "They're dramatic, they—" "She hasn't been dramatic once," Dora said. "Not once. I've been watching." The room was quiet now. Not silent. There was still noise from the kitchen, still the low hum of other conversations. But the tables nearby had gotten very still. People were listening without looking. That particular kind of listening, that happens when something true is being said in a place where people are used to pretending. The father switched tactics. He always would. Dora had seen it enough times to know. First, dismissal. Then, the charm offensive. He almost smiled, looked around at the nearby tables with an expression that said, "Isn't this something?" and said, "Look, I understand you might mean well, but you're a stranger, and you're inserting yourself into something you don't understand. Nadia has some behavioral challenges that we've been working through, and sometimes—" "Stop," Dora said. He stopped. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't give her a diagnosis in public to justify what I just watched you do." She kept her voice even, unhurried. "That's a specific kind of move. I know it because I've seen it. You reframe the child as the problem so that anything done to the child becomes management. I'm not going to stand here and watch you manage her." Something in his face changed. The performance slipped a little, because she'd named it, and the thing about naming it, the specific thing, is that it takes the air out of the room. He couldn't pretend anymore that she was just an outsider who didn't understand. She understood completely, and they both knew it. The mother had her hand over her mouth, quietly, like she was holding something in that had been waiting a long time to come out. Dora reached into the inside pocket of her jacket and set a card on the table. She placed it face up, within Nadia's reach, without making a production of it. "That number," she said, speaking directly to Nadia for the first time in this part of the conversation, "belongs to a family law advocate in this county. Her name is Teresa Munn. She's worked with minors in situations like yours for 18 years. She doesn't need parental consent to speak with you. She doesn't charge, and she doesn't repeat what you tell her unless you ask her to move forward." Dora held the girl's eyes. "You don't have to do anything tonight, but now you know her number exists, and knowing changes things." Nadia looked at the card. She didn't pick it up. She looked at it for a long moment, and then looked at Dora, and her expression was something Dora recognized from the inside. It was the look of someone who has been carrying something alone for so long that being seen by another person feels like a physical thing, like pressure releasing. "Thank you," Nadia said, quietly but clearly. The father started to reach for the card. Dora put 2 fingers on the edge of the table, not touching him, just there. "I wouldn't," she said. He sat back. Dora looked at him then, really looked at him, and she said the last thing she was going to say to him, because she believed in economy, in saying the exact amount and not one word more. "There are 2 deputies who eat here on Tuesday nights," she said. "I know them both. I also know that what I watched happen at this table tonight is something I can describe in a written statement with time, location, and detail." She paused, not for effect, just because the next part deserved its own space. "I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to destroy your family. But I am here. And now you know that I'm here, and that people like me exist in every town, every diner, every room you walk into thinking no one is paying attention." She looked at him calmly. "We are always paying attention." She didn't wait for him to respond. She went back to her table, sat down, and picked up her sweet tea. Marcus walked in 4 minutes later, apologizing for traffic, and Dora listened to him talk about the route while she kept one eye on the Hargrove table. The father paid the check. They left. Nadia walked out last. At the door, she turned and looked back across the restaurant. Found Dora's eyes, held them for just a second, and then she was gone. Marcus asked, on the way out to the bikes, why Dora was quiet. She thought about it for a moment. "There's a difference," she said, "between authority and control. Authority comes from something real, something you've earned or something you carry because of who you are. Control is just fear wearing a mask." She unlocked her bike, swung her leg over. Some people spend their whole lives confusing the two, And the people closest to them pay for that confusion every single day. Marcus didn't say anything. He knew her well enough to let it sit. Dora started the engine. The sound of it filled the parking lot, low and steady, like a heartbeat. "She'll make the call," she said. Not a question, more like a decision she'd already made on Nadia's behalf, the decision to believe in her. She's got more in her than he knows. He never bothered to look. She pulled out onto the main road and let the night open up in front of her. Because that's the thing about real protection. It doesn't make someone need you. It reminds them of what they already have inside themselves. And sometimes all it takes is one person, in one room, who refuses to look away.